if you clicked on this video or you're listening to this episode and you see me, I'm a young person. I'm considered in general still a young person, being 31. Now, I will say that life doesn't care about your age. It will throw painful events that can lead to suffering at you no matter what age you have. Let me just go through, in a way, the lists of events to mainly show the things that have happened to me, to highlight that I'm not just talking, but that I've had actual true lived experience. Starting at 4 years old, so yeah, starting off good in life, by losing my dad. He died in a accident. That is in generally considered quite a traumatic experience that has left its marks on me. At around 6 years old, I have been diagnosed with a life-threatening heart disease called arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy. That has led to many surgeries throughout my life when I was younger. Then at 12 years old, I had started to develop very depressive thoughts that developed throughout the years until 18 into deep suicidal thoughts that I lived with for 6 years every day, and that led to an attempt. Then some years later, at 28, I survived a sudden cardiac arrest. Many people don't know what that is. It's also called a sudden death. My heart stopped beating when I was asleep. Survived that through a chain of luck. The survival rates of a cardiac arrests are beyond bad. It's 1 in 10 who survived it. That also, of course, led to quite a lot of life changes, chronic medication, to many more surgeries that I've had after my cardiac arrest, to more upcoming surgeries, like there's another one coming up next year, and to having an ICD implanted in me, so a device that is connected to my heart. So they turned me into a cyborg. Sounds cool. It's not so fun. In case if I would ever get another cardiac arrest, I would get a shock so it can reset my heart. And then the last event that caused a lot of pain and suffering that I'm still in is living with so far permanent dizziness and nausea. I've been having those or struggling with that now for 2.5 years, and in those 2.5 years it has slightly improved because they figured out that I had hyperthyroidism, stomach ulcer, stomach bleeding, so that led to some of those symptoms. But even them being treated now, I still have constant dizziness and lightheadedness and nausea every single day. So I've had 27 years of time to think about pain and suffering, and I have learned to deal healthily, in a healthy way, with them. And that's what I want to share here in this video. My insights, my pieces of advice, and some practical takeaways, because everyone will come to experience pain and suffering at some point in their life. And there might be a high chance, if you're watching this or listening to this, that you are currently dealing with something that is causing pain and or suffering in your life. Go easy, but go. That's a phrase that I have learned from Dr. Martin Inderbitsen, someone that I've had on the podcast quite a few times. He's a neuroscientist and a pancreatic cancer survivor who actually has chronic cancer. So he's constantly fighting against it. He knows quite a few things about suffering as well. So I've like I said, done a couple of episodes with him on these topics. Check the description to find them. Great additional episodes to check out. Now, to give a personal example on how this phrase would look, when I had my cardiac arrests and once they got me out of the artificial coma and I was getting a bit more to my senses because I had amnesia, had a lot of memory issues, I had to spend some, weeks in the hospital. I have a photo of where I'm in the hospital studying for the next exam because I had that phrase in my head of go easy, but go. And I wanted to pick up my life as fast as I could. which honestly, looking back, I think was one of the smartest things that I could do. And of course, because my brain, and I mean, I was dealing with such an insane kind of fatigue, like a fatigue that is hard to describe. So I know that I had my study book open for like 5 minutes and I fell asleep on it. Time will do its thing, right? With my cardiac arrest, for example, time will do its thing in my recovery process. My brain will heal as much as it can. My heart will as much as it can. But it was also my own actions of taking a small step every day, because time alone isn't enough for getting yourself out of the pain and suffering or to cope better with it. You need action as well. And that is something that you have to do. Life is suffering. Now, this is not very motivational to hear. It can sound very dark in a lot of ways. Now, why go on if life is suffering and if there will be pain to be experienced in life? You gotta change the story of what suffering is and what it means. Because there is nothing as powerful as pain and suffering for an individual, for us, to push us to growth. If I didn't live with suicidal thoughts, I wouldn't have ventured on this whole path of self-discovery and self-growth. If I didn't have this heart disease, the same. Like, it has led to many, many lessons and insights. It has led to a lot of growth internally to handle life. It gave me a lot of perspective, a lot of insights in dealing with other life situations. It can push us like no other thing into tremendous amount of growth. And collectively, there's nothing as pain and suffering that can bring us so close together. So by changing the story to not seeing pain and suffering as just mere unpleasantness, but as a potential for more. Now, another version of changing the story that has been really helpful to me. So without going really into details, the night that I wanted to execute my plan on committing suicide, in the moment of insanity, there came a short moment of clarity. And well, the moment of clarity was more a shock of really realizing how deep I was into this hole of darkness. And that moment kind of snapped me out of executing my plan. An inner dialogue that I had with myself was like, all right, the thing that I want to die will happen naturally. Like, it's just a matter of time. So why not wait and see what more I could still make out of life? That was the motivation to actually truly start turning my life around and to truly deal with the depression and the suicidal thoughts. Suffering will lead to more suffering unless you want to do something about it. Then it can actually be reduced. Yeah, it takes responsibility. Yes, it takes action, but also remember, go easy, but go. Take a small step. But if you do not do anything, of course, the suffering will continue and the pain will continue to grow. But have that curiosity there of why not see what might still happen. Now, something more on this topic of changing the story. I'm quite a short guy with 1 meter 64 centimeters. I am on average seen as a short guy. And I'm not saying that that has led to a tremendous amount of suffering, but it has led to discomfort in certain ways. I also have dyslexia, I have dyscalculia, I have this heart disease. I have a range of problems. The way how I've started looking at them is not just at life just hating me, but I've started to change the story again of seeing that, like, okay, life is challenging me. Life is putting this all on me to see how much I can take. Words have power, so be very conscious of the words that you use, and you can deliberately choose to change the wording. Choose words that uplift you and make you feel a sense of power full instead of powerless. And a last thing on changing the story, have a higher power to believe in. And this can be any kind of faith Now, I'm not per se a religious person, but I have a phrase, a quote. Let me read it. We're all visitors to this time, this place. We're just passing through. Our purpose here is to observe, to learn, to grow, to love, and then we return home. This is a quote that I have heard years ago, and one that I still, after so many years, emotionally connect with. If I would start rationally thinking about, will this be the truth? Yeah, then I could maybe come at some point to also say, like, yeah, maybe not. But that's not the point, actually. I feel sometimes of faith or of spirituality or whichever belief that you might believe in. If it feels meaningful to you on a deeper level inside you, then hold on to that. I also live life like that. I'm here to grow, to learn, to love, to experience life. And that also implies experiencing pain and suffering. And then after this, I go home, having learned all this. But this is a stage in life to me. If it feels meaningful to you, then that's useful. And that's a story that you can use to go and venture through the chaos that life can be. It can be a compass. Comparing yourself can be useful if you can create a perspective. For example, if you lost your arm and you will then see a video of Alex Lewis, someone that I had on the podcast, who lost all his four limbs, it can create perspective that, okay, well, there are people who have it far worse, who have lost all their limbs. At least I still have my legs, my other arm. It can be useful if it creates healthy perspective. However, and I've seen this quite a few times working with clients 101, that they compare their problems to other people who have it far worse, or just instantly say when they share their problems or struggles, like, okay, but other people have it far worse. There is a very unhelpful thing to that as well. Yeah, there can be a useful part to comparing if it leads to perspective, and that feeling of perspective leads to less pain, less suffering. It elevates some of that. Sure, then it's useful and healthy. But if you just use that as a way of not seeing and recognizing the discomfort that you are experiencing, however small or however big or whatever, right? The size of the problem that you're facing doesn't matter. That should not be in there, actually. When there's pain in you, when you are suffering for whatever reason, you shouldn't compare the size of it to someone else's problems. If you recognize it, you are being there for yourself. You are being a team player with yourself. So be there for yourself by not comparing and recognizing that your pain and suffering are worth looking at and talking about and doing something about. In no way you could see or tell that I lost my dad when I was 4 years old. In no way you could see that I have a heart disease, a chronic heart disease, nor that I ever struggled and lived with suicidal thoughts for years. There's no obvious way where you just look at me from the outside to see that. Yet these have all happened. This actually applies to everyone. Like, everyone is walking around with some pain. Everyone is going through a battle that you know nothing about. And I think, or I feel that there's quite something powerful and touching in that, because there's so many differences that we have that set us apart from each other. Skin color, where we're from, age, that can, divide us from each other. One thing that we have in common is that we all will come to experience pain and suffering in life. And the main thing why I'm sharing this is that the next time that you look someone in the eyes, know that behind those eyes, there is likely also a form of pain and suffering, a battle that they're going through that you can see from the outside, that you know nothing about. And that concept, that idea, for me, has really led to more empathy towards anyone and everyone. I never judge people for any action before first thinking that there is a battle going on within them that I know nothing about that led to that behavior. There is always, in a way, a good reason why someone acts and reacts in a certain way. A lot of the battles of pain and suffering we fight alone. We have to go through them, right? Even if there's people around us that love us, we still have to deal and live with that pain. Hearing about others, their battles that are going on in them, makes us feel less alone. So it makes us feel connected, right? And that's in the end one of the biggest things that we all as human beings want, to feel loved and to feel connected. And in many ways, all it takes is just showing those battles that we're fighting inside, being vulnerable about them, because again, it leads to tremendous amounts of connection on a deep emotional level like nothing else. I started this project, Inner Path Seekers, because of the pain and suffering from living with suicidal thoughts and depressive thoughts for 6 years straight. Once I started on this path of self-discovery and of growth and of healing, and I started to realize why I did not learn anything about, myself, my emotions, and any internal things that we feel and experience in school. I wanted to do something about that lack of life education by starting this project. And throughout these years, starting this project has led to many interviews on the podcast with psychologists, with neuroscientists, with relationship experts, and other just experts in their fields to provide more understanding. It has led to one-on-one work with clients. It has led to studying to become a clinical psychologist. It has led to events. In that way, starting this project, the pain and suffering where it has been created from has become more than just pain and suffering alone. It has become meaningful to have gone through that. So whatever that you have gone through or are going through, see how you can do something more with it. Most of the time this comes down to, how can you help other people? How can you help other people feel less alone, feel less pain, feel less hurt, feel less like they're suffering? How can you reduce some of that through the experience that you have gone through or are going through? Once pain and suffering can become something more than that alone, they can become a kind of power to use to better the world and better people's life. A book that I can highly recommend, a very popular one, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Franklin. Highly recommended to read, as it's a book about suffering and finding meaning. I will link it in the description to check. Again, if you want to learn even more about meaning, then that book is an incredible read for everyone. If you've watched other videos or other episodes on this topic of pain and suffering, then 100% sure finding support will come up there. But let me first share something completely different, maybe that you haven't heard. So there's only so many bones that you can break in your body, right? Which is why we can study them, which is why we know how to treat them well. The same is true psychologically. Like, there are only but so many things that a person psychologically can go through. There are only but so many things that are considered to be traumatic. There is a limit of capacity of what we can experience as human beings. And the main reason why I am saying that and sharing that is, when I was dealing with suicidal thoughts, I thought no one would understand, which is the main reason why I did not dare to share it with anyone. Know that whatever that you are going through, something physical or psychological that's causing you hurt, pain, and suffering, and you have never shared it with someone, try it. Try it with someone that you trust, or try it with a professional. There is a high chance, to a degree, that that person that you trust will understand it to some parts, and there's a very high chance where you share it with a professional that they know exactly what it's like. I will also add that support is key and will always be key. There is so much psychological research on this. To build a circle of support, a support system, that is so important to start creating. So select some people that you trust, friends and family, your spouse. Select professionals. In my case, a cardiologist, a psychologist, people that you can professionally talk about that pain or that part of suffering that you're going through. And then I will also add a third pillar to the support system, which is a support group. Other people who are also going through the same that you are going through or have gone through the same. There are support groups for any known issue, any known thing in the world. There is a support group out there. Have that as well in your support system. That is a key pillar to not forget, that I do think often can be forgotten. But it's those three, I feel, are the golden pillars of having a great support system. Now, this will likely not apply to everyone's situation, but it is something that has been tremendously helpful in my case for certain events that I've gone through. And it is a quote, a short one that I actually have tattooed on my arm as a reminder. It's a great reminder. And the quote is, "This too shall pass." The many hospital visits that I've had, the many surgeries that I've had throughout my life on my heart, there's nothing pleasant about having a surgery. That quote has each time helped me. That the discomfort that I'm feeling in the hospital, during the surgery, after the surgery, the recovery, that too will pass. That pain will pass. Now, there are things like chronic pain that might not pass, but they might pass in a different way. You might psychologically be able to deal with it better. So in that sense, that too will pass. When I was living with suicidal thoughts, I thought that hell would never end. But eventually, through time and through action, that too passed. Whatever that you're going through, again, maybe it will not apply to everyone, but to quite some people's situation, it can apply. This too shall pass. I started a support group for cardiac arrest survivors, and there was a gentleman that comes quite regularly, a person that I really like, really care about, and he can easily spiral down into negative and depressive thoughts. He knows that. It's okay, right? But he said a phrase, something that kept him going, and that is, "I can quit, but not today." And I really like that phrase. I really liked it. I've picked it up myself as well. If you feel like quitting, you can quit, but not today. Another similar version of that, one that I've actually been using for the last years, is from Paul Kalaniti, who is a neurosurgeon who had lung cancer. He died from it. From his book, When Bread Becomes Air. "I can't go on, I'll go on." That's a phrase that I've used many times as well, going through events that have caused suffering in me. There's been plenty of times that I felt that I couldn't go on anymore. But yet, I will go on. At any point in your life, you can choose to become the writer again of your own story, but you have to deliberately choose to take up the pen and to create that fork in this road. You can decide. I'm not saying that this is easy, right? To see what that other path will lead to. A path of growth, a path of doing something with that pain and suffering. It might not take all the pain and suffering away that you're experiencing, but it can lead to less, and that's something. So thank you for watching. Subscribe or follow, depending on which platform that you are watching or listening to this. Yeah, I really hope that you gained something out of this video. I hope to have you on another video or episode. Until then, this is Jelly Svas, signing off.